On the right, Pat Buchanan. In the Crossfire, Phyllis Schlafly, founder of the Eagle Forum.
Welcome to Crossfire. Tonight, the sweetheart of the silent majority, the lady who killed the ERA, meets Tom Braden. Tom?
Mrs. Schlafly, the last time you and I talked, you were leading the big fight to kill the Women's Rights Amendment, and I think everybody in the country would agree that you did a very good job and that you were successful.
Thank
now,
you. Except it isn't the Women's Rights Amendment, it's the Equal Rights Amendment, which wouldn't have given women any rights at all.
All right, Mrs. Schlafly, I'm not going to argue that with you right now.
We won anyway.
But I want to say how surprised I was. I picked up the latest copy of your Eagle Forum newsletter, and lo and behold, you're on a new kick. This was the letter in which you were advertising Phyllis Schlafly's camphor ice for chapped lips. And you said the TV networks are determined to take over the politics of this country. The enclosed issue of the Phyllis Schlafly report shows why it's so important for you to fight media bias. Media bias? I thought you were for getting women back into the kitchen. Do you know anything about media bias?
Do I know anything about media bias?
What do you know about it? Are you just trying to keep your name out? You want to keep your name out front. I understand that, but you got a new issue now.
There is no way you can deny the media bias in regard to the Equal Rights Amendment. Surely 99% of the media were for the Equal Rights Amendment.
What's that? Is that necessarily biased?
Sure.
Biased? Well, sure.
Wait just a minute. If I have an opinion and it's in favor of one thing or another, doesn't matter what, that's not necessarily biased, Mrs. Schlafly.
Oh,
they don't happen to agree with you, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, but they use their power in the airways. Now, take a look at Dan Rather talking about Ronald Reagan every night. He's cutting up poor Ronald Reagan every night in the week.
Well, I hadn't noticed that. I think he reports what the president says.
Oh, no. I think that he reports it with the slant that they are against everything that Ronald Reagan is for.
Phyllis Schlafly, everybody would say, look, what else is new? We have said there's been media bias. It infects the networks and the dominant news magazines, the Washington Post. And the
She needs a new issue. That's what's new.
What else is new that there's media bias?
What is new?
What is new?
Well, what is new is that the chairman of the FCC wants to abolish the fairness doctrine.
We had him right here on this station. We almost changed his mind, I think.
Oh, he did? Well, good for you, because I tried, but I didn't succeed.
But what do you do about it?
Well, I think that the media ought to have an obligation to be fair and to give different points of view on controversial issues of public importance.
Well, sure, that obligation is already there on the networks. They are obligated to provide fairness. In other words, a measure of balance on all issues. They're obligated to provide equal time for candidates, I guess, of major parties. You can't put that imposition on the Washington Post or the Washington Times.
That's right. I'm not trying to put it on the Washington Post. Now, wait a minute. Look, the law is there. You're absolutely right. The question is, are we going to repeal that law? And the chairman of the FCC wants to repeal it. And failing that,
which he's a Reagan appointee.
Yes, he is. But that doesn't mean he's perfect.
He's a Republican.
Yes, that's right.
Is he biased?
Well, look, Republicans have different points of view. All Republicans do not agree.
But if they don't agree with you, they're biased.
No. We're talking about media bias. We're not talking about agency bias. But he wants to repeal the fairness doctrine. And failing that, which he hasn't gotten Congress to do, he is trying to get rid of it by means of regulations and by means of talking against it.
All right, well, you said
Now, what I think is that the fairness doctrine is good. I think the obligation on the station should be there to give differing points of view on controversial issues of public importance. That's the only thing. And I do oppose what Mr. Fowler is trying to do in getting rid of the fairness doctrine.
Let me go to the Reagan agenda. Now, you were part of this Heritage Foundation group that marked Ronald Reagan. You gave him very, very high grades, didn't you? Very high grades.
Yeah,
Here's the president.
I like Ronald Reagan.
I like Ronald Reagan too, but from a conservative standpoint, he presided over 3 big tax increases last year. That's one thing he did. He's got $200 billion worth of deficits Ronald Reagan is running. The social agenda, in which Phyllis Schlafly believes, tuition tax credits got nowhere, the prayer amendment got nowhere, the right to life movement has not gotten much of anywhere under Ronald Reagan. Do you think there has been some failure of leadership, or are you just all out for Reagan Bush?
Well, look, I don't think Ronald Reagan is perfect, but I don't see what you gain by kicking Ronald Reagan around when Dan Rather is doing such a super job, much better than we could do, every night in the week. And so I think, no, you're right.
All right.
I'm not
All
in
right,
favor
Phyllis.
of the tax increases. I think Ronald Reagan should have cut more out of the budget right away. I think he should have put his tax reductions into effect immediately instead of allowing the 6-month and 1-year slippage at the beginning.
I understand you have another issue.
But I still don't want Walter Mondale.
Mrs. Schlafly, I want to ask you about one of your other new issues that keeps you right out there in front. You want the right. You want to fight for the right of parents to keep their children at home. Is that right? And
Well-
teach them at home.
Well, I taught my own 6 children at home up through the 1st grade, teaching them to read by the phonics method.
How long do you suggest that parents keep their
Well,
children at home?
I only kept them home through the 1st grade, and then I entered them in the 2nd grade. But somebody else might choose differently. I think this is up to the parents.
Are you worried about the children maybe mixing with the wrong element?
Well, there are different reasons why parents want to keep their children at home and train them at home. But I think anybody who's worried about that should give the children tests and see how they're doing. But a parent who is willing to devote part of his or her day educating the child at home is a very dedicated parent, and that parent wants something good for the children.
I want to ask you one more about another issue. Yesterday, the state, I think it was yesterday, the state of Washington, a judge out there ruled that women were entitled to comparable pay for comparable work. Do you agree with that?
I think it's terrible, because what they decided was they want to pay laundry workers and clerical workers the same as truck drivers. And because this judge has decided that there was somehow some massive conspiracy to pay women laundry workers and clerical workers less than male truck drivers, he has hit the state of Washington with what they estimate will cost them $1 billion. He's already ordered the first quarter of $1 billion.
But Mr. Schlafly, doesn't the secretary have as much to contribute to the company as the truck driver does?
Well, I
think one of the rules was that the secretaries have to be paid the same as the truck driver.
That's right. That's exactly what it is.
Well,
but the question,
you see
Tom,
anything wrong with that?
Yes, I do see something wrong with that. But the most important thing wrong with it isn't what I think those people are worth or what you think they're worth, but who is going to decide. And what the comparable worth people are asking for is for the judge to decide. They want the judge to decide.
No, but it was decided by a committee that came to this, a committee that did a study of all the jobs in the state, and the governor agreed with it. Even the judge agreed with it. And one of the things was that a secretary gets paid the same as a truck driver. I just want to know if you think that's fair.
No, I don't think it's fair. I think.
Do you think the secretary ought to get more?
No, I
Why
don't
not?
think that. Well, in the first place, the average secretary can't spell today, and so.
Neither can the average truck driver.
Yeah, but the truck driver doesn't have to spell.
Okay,
but it is absolutely essential that a secretary spell.
Yeah.
And if she can't, what does that mean? That is the decline in productivity is simply tremendous in having to retype page after page after page. But anyway, it's a subjective judgment. My point is...
my guess would be that a secretary would be worth just as much as a truck driver.
You think you ought to let the market...
But look,
I know secretaries who run the place. You have a secretary, don't you?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have an older one who can spell.
I don't think... Okay, I was going to say, you're not going to have her after tomorrow.
No. Mine can spell. But
Let
the
me
young
ask-
ones who can't. But no, look, the point is, who is going to decide?
I believe the market should set the price.
Yes, but you see, the people who are pushing comparable worth are not for the marketplace deciding.
I know, they
They want to throw out the market, and they want to bring in this committee of experts you talked about, Tom, who then go around and do their interviews and add up a little point system.
That's the way they have it in the People's Republic of China. I think there's 46 or 7 separate echelons of jobs and things like that.
And we don't want a society where wages are set by courts
Let me
or
ask you
judges
this.
or
This is a serious
agencies.
question. Now, I've argued the gender gap case with the people, women from now, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But why do you think there is a gender gap? Women 25 to 40 years old are the weakest group, I guess, besides blacks and some minorities, of general support for Ronald Reagan. Why do you think that is so?
Well, the biggest problem with women today is divorce. And divorced women have suffered a great economic deprivation. When the average woman goes through divorce, her standard of living goes down severely while the ex-husband's goes
Why
up.
should she be against Ronald Reagan for that reason?
Well, because she's unhappy with things that have happened, and a lot of these propagandists in the media have tried to tell her this is Ronald Reagan's fault. Of course, it's not his fault. He can't do anything about that.
Why would they blame it on him, though? I mean, he's persuaded other people. The media says, a lot of the media says Reagan's the fault of everything. Why is the media persuasive with this group and not, say, persuasive with men over 40?
Because they are talking about it all the time. You realize the gender gap isn't something that's real. It is only something that exists in these polls, which is not real. It's
Those are the same
synthetic.
polls that
Just
say
tell me
Ronald
then,
Reagan's
Mrs.
going to kill
Schlafly,
Walter
why is it, you've seen the figures, the figures got to be right there. Every poll reports it. Why is it that women... Why is it that women are not going to vote for Ronald Reagan in as large numbers as men?
The only women who are not going to vote for Ronald Reagan are the same women who didn't vote for him in 1980, and he won in a landslide.
You don't believe there's a gender gap?
No, I don't believe there's a gender gap.
But is the press just being biased when it reports that there is?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is their latest gimmick.
All the polls show.
All right.
Are they biased?
All right, let me ask you this, Phyllis Schlafly. You're right about the feminists in the press. I don't know any women, or I can't name a single woman, I guess, in the press who is not pro-feminist, pro-ERA. But why is that so? These are intelligent, capable women, many of whom have gone to college, and you go through the women in the press corps, 100% pro-ERA, 100%, probably 100% pro-abortion, or almost 100% pro-feminist. Why?
Well, I think they have made a definite effort to get that kind of women into those jobs. And a lot of the women who don't agree with that don't want those jobs. And it isn't any accident. It happened that way, but it's certainly not reflective.
But you don't think it's a conspiracy, do you? I mean, these are talented women. I don't deny it, but...
I think it's networking. I think they get their people in and they
help each other. Keep our people out?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I certainly do think so.
Okay. Tom Braden and I are talking to Miss Phyllis Schlafly, the lady who killed ERA, and we'll be right back in a minute.
Welcome back to Crossfire, where Pat Buchanan and I are talking to the famed Phyllis Schlafly, the opponent of the ERA amendment and the victor in that fight. Mrs. Schlafly, I've been wanting to ask you for a long time about some things you've said in the past. I remember when I was living out in California, they disturbed me at the time, and this gives me a chance to ask you whether you still hold those views or whether you perhaps like to apologize. Do you mind? In 1964, in your book, The Grave Diggers, you said this: Robert S. McNamara and Walter Rostow and McGeorge Bundy deliberately weakened the United States military position so that the Russians could bury America. It's now 1983. Do you want to take that back?
No. At 1962,
You think
at the
Robert
time
McNamara deliberately weakened the United States? I mean, what?
Well, but look, when
Phyllis Schlafly, come on.
Oh, now let me answer, Tom. When McNamara ran the defense of this country for 7 years, and during that period of time, he canceled the 2,000 Minutemen that had been ordered by Dwight Eisenhower. He scrapped 3/4 of our multi-megaton missiles. He scrapped all of our intermediate range missiles. He scrapped 2,000 strategic bombers, and he refused to allow us to build the ABM. Now, when he went into office...
They had a treaty about the ABM.
No, he didn't.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Not while he was in office.
All right.
And
let me
in
just get back to you. Wait a minute
1962...
now.
Now, wait a minute.
I don't
When he went
know.
into office-
He might have done all of... Wait just a minute. I want to ask you.
Let me
the
broker-
full quotation.
Just wait a minute.
Look,
When he went into
did
office-
he do this? Did he do this so that the Russians could bury America?
Well, I think...
And did he deliberately do it so that to weaken America? That's what you said.
Well, he certainly did it deliberately. I assume that he knew what he was doing. Of
To
course,
weaken America?
Yes, and he did weaken America, and the facts prove it, because when he went into office in 1961, this country had an 8-to-1 military superiority over the Soviet Union. And when he went out of office, that superiority was gone. Now, he was in charge, and I believe that the guy at the top has to take the blame or the
Well,
credit.
let's go the whole hog. Do you think he's a traitor?
Well, no, I don't think he's a traitor, but then he
Well, now
moved
look,
into...
if you set out deliberately to weaken America so
Now,
that the
listen,
Soviet
Tom,
Union could
you're
bury
not gonna
us,
put any
you're
words
getting
in my
pretty
mouth
close.
that I didn't
Look,
say.
you put enough words in your mouth. If
That's
I were
right.
you, I'd be ashamed of yourself.
No,
To say that
but-
about a distinguished American statesman who served his country for 12 years
Listen,
in high office
when he left the Defense Department,
is
then he went into the World
a
Bank.
shocking thing to do.
Well, you know what he did when he left the Defense Department? Then he went into the World Bank, and he's been giving away our money ever since.
No,
he's the one
not
who's
there
been
anymore.
promoting all these
Not there anymore. You gotta
phony
But
loans.
she is
these
dead
bad
right about the
loans.
World Bank expansion under McNamara was exponential.
All right, well, all right, then go ahead and call him a traitor. Now, in
Nobody
You're the
has
one.
called him a
Nobody called him
traitor.
a
Well,
traitor.
look, what more could you say? He deliberately
Just the fact.
weakened
He
America
did deliberately
He did.
weaken
in order
America
to
to let
permit Russia to bury America.
he let the Russians catch up with the United States. It was his philosophy of mutual
Deliberately
assured-
and in order to
deliberately
encourage the
weaken.
Russians to bury America. That's what she said.
Look, he encouraged the Russians to catch up with us. He said it doesn't make any difference if they do.
You want me to read it again?
Go ahead.
I think it's.
Well,
I
do you
think-
want me to tell you
I
again
think
what
it's
he
a
actually
statement
did?
You ought to apologize.
Why don't you go on to the next statement? We
All right, let
discussed
me
this
get
one.
you. Let me give you the next one.
Okay.
In 1965, you wrote a book called Strike from Space, and you revealed plans for a Soviet surprise attack and a counterplot by defeatists in this country who wanted to disarm unilaterally so the Soviets could feel they did not need to attack. I just wondered, who were those defeatists? You didn't name them.
Unilateral disarmament?
Oh, sure. Of all the people who were dismantling the 8-to-1 superiority that this country
Like
had.
Robert McNamara.
Sure, McNamara and a whole bunch of them.
All right,
It,
well,
Next
now
one.
listen, Tom, it is
President
clear.
Johnson and Kennedy?
It is clear
Kennedy
based on the record that we had the superiority when they went into office, and we didn't
Well,
have
now,
it when they went out.
how
Now,
about-
they were the ones in charge. They were the ones who scrapped all the existing weapons that we had. They're the ones who refused to allow us to build any more.